not bothering me so
Were
much.
you able to do some of the self-reflection, or are you saving that for when you feel better?
I did do some, yes.
That's great. Okay. Okay.
Saving the self-reflection.
Saving, yes, saving yourself for self-reflection. Oops. Okay, we're just waiting for, yeah, they're coming, they're delivering me a lovely cup of tea, which is great. And we can start with a short meditation. Thank you so much. That's lovely. Thank you. So let's just settle into a meditation while we all gather ourselves together. Take some nice deep breaths. We're not going to do a long meditation because meditation notoriously after lunch sends us into slumber. We'll do a long one later. So just settle. Just settle into the posture, the breathing, letting go of tension. And bringing your awareness to the breath. It's always, whatever meditation you do, it's a lovely place to start. Just get into the structure of the pyramid. You relax, you stabilize, and then we focus our attention. We focus. And then focusing on the breath. We are able to observe and release the chitter-chatter and find that glimpse, at least, of spaciousness and quiet. And it's always very important when we are putting ourselves through a kind of do-it-yourself therapy, becoming our own therapist, and loving, as you would say, that we give ourselves a strong dose of love. In the same way that we would with a dear child. we're learning. We're doing our best. And we put a lot of effort over the course of the weekend into identifying the nature of our mind, our sense of self, and what we understand to be the seed, the root of our sublime spiritual nature, which we in turn have identified as being the higher self, art, Buddha, nature, intuitive mind, all point to the same experience of our wisdom, and compassion that we can ignore or nurture. So with whatever you've been thinking about, let it drop into your heart space, especially any thoughts of low self-esteem. Symptoms of which are things like guilt and our destructive emotions like jealousy and envy. Any feelings of being less than others. Let that drop, and let's focus this on light at our heart center, the usual orb of translucent light. And as these negativities drop into it, they simply melt as our innate source of wisdom and compassion burns off. In the most blissful way. As if we were a mother hugging a child, it would all be better. We are learners. To allow that light to grow to your heart and to absorb into the center of your chest in such a way that it facilitates and you feel yourself being loved. And in the same way that you would have compassion for any suffering being in the world, generate that for yourself. You try so hard. You have made mistakes. You have been hurt. You have been rejected. You have physical conditions, whatever it is. Just as if you were your own dear child, let all that fall into this wonderful orb of light. And feel the love. Appreciate yourself. And the more you do that, the more the light spreads throughout your body, relaxing and nourishing you, and making you feel whole and worthy and valued and valuable. Send it out, down right to your toes, up into your head, through your body, feeling as filled with light and love. You can let that light spill out through the pores of your skin until you're surrounded around your own halo, your natural goodness. Feel how wonderful that is. This is you, your higher self, your Buddha nature. Believe it. And gradually draw it back in, slowly into your body, leaving your body feeling refreshed, drawing it into your heart. There, for whenever you need it, whenever you need reassurance, you're good, you're wise, you're compassionate. And that dissolves into your sitting as far as the breath. Full of self-confidence and self-esteem. And you're ready, and the meditation. Okay, as promised, once we have an idea about how the mind works, we can start to work with the biggest influence on your mind, emotions. Revisiting that. So this is all very well, isn't it? To say, yeah, these qualities, patience, but how does one develop them? So, you know, we see this in many religions, actually, you know. Jesus said, love your neighbour. He didn't tell you that. There isn't that instruction. Love your neighbour. It's not so easy to love a noisy, dirty neighbour. How do you do it? So this is what we're going to be looking at this afternoon. We're going to be having a look at our own landscape of emotions, having some discussion, doing some self-reflection, and more meditation. So yeah, so to develop spiritually, this is our inner world we're developing. So if you remember, we talked before about how worldly pursuits bring us discontent. The ego is full of fear. We take refuge in stuff, and we're generally trying to create a persona, but doesn't really have the confidence. So even the most confident people, seeming people we see in the world, actually, if they're very arrogant and full of themselves, what they're doing is showing that they have very low self-esteem, because it's a persona. Whereas if, for instance, you take the example of somebody like the Dalai Lama, he doesn't have to go, I'm great, yeah? I am wonderful. There's a humility there, and yet he exudes self-confidence. So these are the role models, if you like, that we're looking at. Just move it over. Sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of me. Oh, hide self-view. There we go. Okay.
Who's the meditative sleep one? Because that's so basic.
The self, the ego.
I like that. That's thinking of Sean's.
The images you find, yeah.
That's it.
It's an interesting one. So positive emotions lead to more and more positive feelings, gentle thoughts, and even more positive emotions. So once we start generating them, they just, you know, it's like you're creating buds out of a flower, the stems go everywhere. So if it's like you're feeding 10,000 people with 4 loaves and 2 fishes, the ripples go out. The ripples go out of our positive emotions. So contentment comes because you're relying less and less on material rewards and hedonistic pursuits of pleasure. So it's genuine contentment. You find the contentment within yourself. Fearlessness, because your ego has less to fear. You know, what can people do? You have a sense of self-confidence. And because you're not wearing any masks or personas, you can own yourself, just like we did in the meditation. I know that I'm okay, I'm a good person. So fear comes, the ego has incredible fear because it's running around trying to be something that it thinks it should be. Yeah? But we're taking away all those distractions. You take away the materialism, take away all the pleasures that we think give us happiness, and then you find that contentment and you find fearlessness, and then you can still enjoy all that stuff. Right? You're not dependent on it. And refuge, because you feel a solid sense of support within you, you become your own refuge. That, you know, that Buddha nature, higher self, whatever that is your reliable source of refuge. I can't emphasize that enough. You know, whatever great role models we have that bring us even to our religion, or you know, that we look up to as being, oh, I'd like to be like that. No matter how wonderful they are, you always come back to, as Rami Ashi told me, trust your inner guru. Doesn't mean to say you're not going to make mistakes, but every time you trust in yourself, that grows stronger, and then will become more and more reliable. Because to begin with, it will be, well, I don't know whether that is my inner self. I don't know who's talking. Is it my ego? Is it So you've got that thing going on. So you're bound to make mistakes, but then you can see, and then you go, well, I did know that. And even little things like people tell you, I think you should do this, or I think, and then you think, oh, maybe I should, and you get scattered. You get scattered by other people's ideas of what they think you should do. And then you do it, and then after a while you go, well, I knew I shouldn't have listened to them. And so you know it. You do know it. You definitely know it. But it's trusting that. And self-esteem comes because you like yourself better. You know, you have less destructive emotions. You have more positive thoughts. When a negative thought comes, you just go, oh, come on, you're just thinking that because let it go. So you become a much more likable person. And if you like yourself, other people will, even more. Right? They'll trust you more. So, okay. So here we go. So I'm calling this emotional intelligence because that is the secular term for what we do in Buddhism. Yeah, and actually, Daniel Goleman himself is a student of the Dalai Lama, but as a psychologist, he came up with this terminology along with some other people. So it existed. Emotional intelligence, and you can see here it's got a perfectly secular framework, the human ability to manage our own emotions and inner potential, positive relationships. So what this came out of, actually, emotional intelligence, was some studies that they did of successful leadership. And they found that actually the person who was brilliant and had a high IQ was not necessarily the most successful leader. You know? And the successful leaders were the ones that had more emotional intelligence. So the whole, the way of leadership has gradually changed, you won't believe it, in some spheres. The way of leadership is generally seen to be that of creating positive relationships. Okay? If you create positive relationships, you're empowering others. You're not just going, do this because I said so. It's not a hierarchical thing. There's more confidence about other people will be able to help you and will also be able to lead. So, and they reckon, you know, there's an image actually where they have IQ at the top of an iceberg, and then under the sea there's this huge iceberg, and that's your emotional intelligence. And IQ, in the intelligence quotient, just out of interest, was developed, I think it was the First World War, when they were trying to decide who had leadership abilities. So they did an intelligence quotient test on all the soldiers coming through and picked out, you know, the ones who could be a sergeant, because they had to do it really quick. And that has stayed. That test has stayed until this came along as a model, very, very much inspired by Buddhist thought, actually. And people started to go, you know what, actually, this is more important. And if we've got a leader who's emotionally intelligent, then actually they're nice to work with, and we want to work with them, and they have more empathy. And so there you go. So even on a completely rational understanding, nothing to do with spiritual qualities, but just how you get on with others and how you make success and how you make businesses work, even in the corporate world, emotional intelligence is seen as important. And of course, we're taking it into that depth of our being as being the route to spiritual awakening. Yeah? So, mindful emotions. What do we mean by mindful emotions? Well, first of all, we have to identify what makes an emotion. understanding how and why we have emotion, where do they come from, which we've looked at a bit already. Then having a look at our own emotional landscapes and using mindfulness to spot when an emotion is arising so that we can deal with it, you know, and encouraging the constructive ones and discouraging destructive. So what makes constructive? What makes an emotion constructive and what makes them destructive? Okay, so here we've got a lovely list. And this is what I want you to go into discussion about. Are they constructive? Are they destructive? Can they be both? Are they emotions? There's loads of emotions. This is just an example. Yeah? But it's enough to have a conversation about. Yeah. What you could do is perhaps decide on, I don't know, the top 3 most destructive, the top 3 most constructive. Yeah. So that's a lot to get your head around. And just maybe just go through ticking them. Good, bad, good, bad. How do you decide? I mean, anxiety, it isn't like we'll take that as a first example. Anxiety is not, well, you're not deliberately trying to feel it, or you're not deliberately trying to hurt others with your anxiety. So how do we know whether it's destructive or constructive? Does it feel good? Do you want it? Does it, how does it feel? And then there are others like anger, which is a very different kind of emotion to anxiety. And we can apply the same questions then. And not so easy, actually. Traditionally, anger is always seen as negative. You might think otherwise. So, an emotion, the dictionary definition for emotion, which is quite interesting, is any agitation or disturbance of mind, feeling, passion, any vehement or excited mental state. I think that's interesting because it's suggesting that the mind without an emotion is not agitated or disturbed. So it's kind of stable. Yeah. And if you look at those initial ideas of the essence of Buddhism, stabilize your mind, encourage the constructive, discourage the destructive. So even, the English dictionary is saying the same thing, that actually this is not agitated or disturbed. The emotions make it so. This is very challenging for a lot of people because we love our emotions. We are emotional beings. Who am I without my emotions? Yeah. So it is very challenging. Does that mean we're aiming to be somebody who is emotional? Like a robot? AI? I don't know. Whatever you call them. Okay, so some discussion to be had. Which are destructive and why? Top 3s might be good. And maybe you can find some which are both, depending. Okay. Are we okay with that? You're going to need that list. And they're going to need to go into their rooms and see that list.
Screenshot.
Screenshot. Can somebody take a screenshot? Yeah, Terry's doing that. Okay, when you're ready, tell me, because I'll then put you in your breakout room. He's ready. He's on that room. Okay. You're fine because you'll be here. So I now have to go. What do I have to go into?
More.
Sharing. Not screen. Stop sharing. And then I go into more breakout rooms. Assign. I do.
Go back to gallery. No, you have to share your screen.
Oh. Oh, it's not letting me do anything. You're all up there. I'm recording.
Share.
That's why I try to do it.
I think I did it before you started.
As long as,
I do it when I saw you go.
Yeah. as long as you have more than 3 people.
Yeah.
You can use one. Yeah, it throws the teachers off in the, to do it.
Okay. So let's get everybody on. Good. Okay, so I did just manage to drop in to their room and have a chat, so I'll manage that. So here we all are. Can we all see each other? Not sure. Are you gonna put your little head in there? Just for this group discussion. Okay, well, I'm very much looking forward to your feedback. Let's start with you guys in the room. Yeah, what did you come up with?
I think it's your
Well, I think we kind of started talking about how there really are constructive and destructive emotions, that each emotion really is a feedback of piece of information that we can work with, where, minds are at. And I don't think we got past anger.
You got stuck on that.
We're discussing if it's a positive or a negative emotion, and
Right.
the idea that getting angry, because then your intention with that anger and where you take it and how you react to it, and sometimes it could be a motivator, and sometimes, it can be destructive.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit in the group together that the others have been discussing. Can you perhaps let's do it like this? So Terry, Julia, and Sheila, can you comment on that from your perspective and your discussion?
Well, we did have a similar kind of, as Ondy said, we had a similar part of our discussion was similar, that some of the negative ones we saw as something that could lead to positive if we're intelligent about the emotions and are able to see them and understand they're telling us something. But then we started, when we looked back at the previous slide that had about emotional intelligence, which I'm trying to find here, where it had encouraging constructive emotions versus discouraging destructive emotions, that actually, if we use that as a filter, then we all kind of felt like we could quickly identify some of the emotions that we would want to water that are constructive, like love, joy, compassion, kindness. And then we realized that the others, in terms of emotional intelligence, we wouldn't want to water them. So we that's how we ended up kind of thinking that we could, a lot of them are not things we can necessarily water, but we can certainly learn from them a lot. But that's one piece. And Julia, you had also a great point.
I would water wonder, because it keeps us present. Like when you're feeling wonder, you're wondering at what's there.
It's open.
Terry, what did you mean by Julia had something to add? Oh, the grief one?
I thought you had there's a I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but I feel like you had another take on this that was really great. But maybe maybe I said it instead, which I didn't mean to do.
You're also emotionally intelligent. Lovely, lovely. Okay, so yeah, does that agree with what you were saying? Or you were discussing?
I would just add one more thing. We were also like, talking about like some of the, what we would normally say are positive qualities like compassion and kindness. And, there's also like idiot compassion,
Yes.
and so it's not so simple. Like the more we were talking about it, it's nuanced. It's not so simple that compassion all the time is good. Because sometimes it can enable bad behavior or kindness. And it's so much is like contextual, understanding what it's telling you, having some wisdom to know, how to express it in speech or action. So yeah.
Yeah, I would add to that it's very useful to be aware of how the ego is involved in idiot, for instance, in idiot compassion, whereby what we understand to be idiot compassion is important as well. So it's, I guess a good example would be to, feel something for somebody who's homeless and then take them in and then let them take over your house and you just keep giving to them without any sense of what that's doing to them and to yourself. Yeah. So there always needs to be some kind of guard there of where you're helping and when you're hindering. So if you can offer a homeless person with great compassion, a bed for the night, but then say, then we've got to find you somewhere to go and put limits on it. But if you just go, oh, come in, take everything, actually what happens to that person is it will lead to their own anger. Yeah. Or a very negative feeling in themselves, because it's not, they don't have great compassion. There is a limit to it, and they are being misused. So understanding your ego's position on when you make an act of compassion is really important. I hope that makes sense, because we've all seen, I mean, even with Dharma centers, you can keep giving and giving, and actually you're getting more and more stressed and anxious and angry. Yeah. Then it's turning into idiot compassion, because it's not genuine compassion. And if you had that, that would be fantastic. But we don't, because we do have ego. Yeah? So it's always understanding we have ego. We're not Bodhisattvas. Yeah? We love that idea and we're aspiring to be. But unless we take care of ourselves, we can't grow our compassion, which is, why we started the afternoon with the self-love. Yeah? We need the self-compassion when you're considering these things, because we're very tempted to go, oh, I just want to be a saint. Yeah. But there's a desire in them. I want to be a saint, and it's not being practiced. So yeah, it is. It's really tricky, but that's why there's so much, I think, personally, that's why it's very important to really understand what we mean by the ego when we're practicing emotional intelligence.
I mean, one of the biggest, things that Benravina once said that really stuck in my head is, the whole love and attachment thing.
Yeah.
And, she was saying how maybe you think you are doing it out of love.
Yes.
But there's always like attachment conflated with, and you almost don't see it till after the fact when the person didn't do what you wanted.
Yes.
And then you get upset.
Upset.
It's like, that's not love, that was always attachment.
Absolutely.
And I just, you know, and I was like, oh, so sometimes I don't even know, you know, till like after the fact, like I think, oh, you know, I'm doing it because I love my husband, and then, but then, you know, and then afterwards I'm upset.
He doesn't feed back what you
Yeah.
want.
It doesn't meet my expectations, you know, but I
Exactly.
did this for you,
And
right?
then, yes.
And it was like such an eye opener, like, it's like,
Yes.
I don't even actually know fully where I'm coming from.
No, but you are reflecting on that afterwards.
Yeah.
And then the next time something happens, the awareness may kick in earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it will prevent you. So that's how we learn emotional intelligence, is it's always afterwards.
Mhm.
And then it becomes, you know, after a while, and not immediately, it becomes more likely to come in quicker. And then until it gets to a point where you just don't do it anymore. It's a gradual process. And you've got the antidote emotions to work with, which we're coming on to. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Julia. Or were you just doing something?
I wanted to ask about grief,
Mm,
because I'm not sure where I would put it. I've
Mm.
had experience of grief where I refused to grieve, and it dragged on for decades and was very destructive. But then I learned how to grieve, and when I'm grieving, I feel profound compassion and love. I feel it as just, I don't like grief. I don't want to have an occasion to grieve, but it's like a portal for the most big love and compassion, and I feel it for all beings. I feel it. I just feel like, oh my gosh, I don't want anyone to have to experience this. And then I feel it. I know people are experiencing it. And it's also at the same time I'm allowing myself to grieve. My most recent experience, I felt joy. And even though my cat died, my very wonderful heart cat died, the love of my life. Well, maybe there'll be another one. And I just, it wasn't that I wasn't grieving for him. It was like it spurred this joy and this opening, this like, it's like my heart cracked open and all these possibilities became clear for me. And that's how I came to Buddhism, actually. So
Wow. That's an incredible explanation of transforming a destructive emotion into the most positive, Julia. I mean, you've got it right there. And I think the only addition, really, or explanation is that grief is one of those things we should not deny, because it will always occur. And it only becomes destructive if it turns into something deeper and darker, like depression and isolation. Yeah. But if it does what you're doing, you see, it's constructive because it's looking at the world and seeing the grieving of the world, the suffering of the world. Yeah, that's why you're experiencing joy. That's why you feel this sense of your heart cracking open, is because you're bringing in others. What happens when grief becomes very destructive is, I mean, we might consciously know that other people go through stuff, but it becomes just a personal thing. My grief, my loss, this shouldn't have happened to me. Why did this happen? And then the world is awful, and I'm cutting off. And you go into depression. Completely understandable. But you have identified through your experience the antidote emotion of compassion. I agree. Everybody feels this. This is human emotion. Grief is a human emotion. This is what the Buddha taught. That life is suffering. And that's your portal into compassion. So that was a wonderful explanation. So, yes, so we've got a variety of destructive to oneself and destructive towards others. Yeah. Recognizing that these emotions are linked with how we relate to others. So, what did you come up with in terms of other emotions? I know you said you got stuck on anger, wasn't it? Or did you just stay with anger?
So I think,
Yeah, so
I think we sort of said that now that, you know, we have heard different teachings on emotions and what is non-virtuous and virtuous and constructive and destructive, like, it's hard to just categorically say, you know, this is all constructive and this is all destructive, because, you know, sort of like evolutionary biology, emotions give you information. What you do with that information matters. Like if you then act it out in harmful ways to myself and others. But if it gives me information like, okay, you know, anger because someone is stepping on my boundaries, or shame because I should know better, I shouldn't have done that. And then asking, okay, but why did I do it? What did I learn from this? How can I not repeat it? Blah, blah. And then you act in a, you know, in a way that's beneficial.
yes,
So, you know, so it was like nuance. It's like, can't outright. Like even anger, you know, I think we kind of said, of course, if anger comes up in your mind and then you know, lash out with that anger, or you write a nasty email, of course that's not helpful. But if that anger gives you information about, you know, things in the world, and then you understand something from it, and then with a calm mind, spacious mind, you respond.
yeah, that's what you picked out
Yeah,
with
you know,
a calm mind. Yeah,
you know, so we're saying that now that we've learned something, like before I would have definitely said, oh yeah, pride is bad, greed is bad. But now it's like asking, why am I being greedy? Like, why can't I give? What's holding me back?
That's the do-it-yourself therapy.
Yeah, you know, why do I feel I don't have enough?
Yes, exactly.
Um,
Why do I always compare myself with others?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the important factor that I think has come in, perhaps with the psychotherapy and you know, modern Western ways of looking at the mind, which add to that beautiful, you know, teaching within Tibetan, within traditional teachings in Buddhism. Yeah, it's our experience. We're lay practitioners. We're not going to be spending long times in meditation, but, you know, developing concentration. So how do I make that a better world, a better place for others and myself to live in? Yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, they are very nuanced. Can anybody pick out one that is horrible in all circumstances, or one that is always perfect?
I feel like greed is always a bad thing. It was hard for me to imagine, when is greed good? But maybe somebody thinks it is. I don't know.
Hey, what about the greed of giving? That's an interesting one, isn't it? I'm not saying it's good, but
Well, then I would think you're giving because you want something,
well, yes,
and that's never good. I don't think that's
you
good.
want approval, don't you? The greed of
Yeah,
giving. Yeah,
you want people to like you. You want,
yes,
and that kind of that yeah. I don't think
that's
that's
not good.
Yeah.
Okay, what about, did you get that far, or are you thinking about that now? I mean, you mentioned idiot compassion, but is that common?
Idiot compassion? Well, I was thinking about our whole political system and sort of the very conservative version. I think they think that they're being very compassionate, and you know, they're sticking their stance, whereas, so to me, that's idiot compassion, because I find it very harmful to so many people.
Right.
So I think it is probably.
It is, yeah. So what we need to be really clear is how do we understand how we as practitioners know when we're feeling or practicing idiot compassion as opposed to compassion. Have we got that? Yeah, it's to do with you though, isn't it? You know, really, really self-aware. Yeah.
The question.
Yes,
I've always wondered, our traditional Buddhist teachings, where we have the mental factors and so forth.
Yes.
We never see these words.
no,
And then we have feeling, which is more of that like, don't like.
yes,
But then when we are, especially the Western model of psychotherapy, it's very much about all these emotions, and
Yes.
usually biology has emotions.
yes.
So I wonder like how they connect, like, are the emotions just, like if we expanded the mental factors, would we just put them in there, or are they just a different derivative of something?
I think they are part of the mental factors, but there's definitely more than 51, so
Yeah.
they probably come into one of those categories.
Because like we don't see like, fear, for example.
No,
And that to me is like one of the most.
it's massive, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly,
Yes, yeah,
or shyness or, grief even, I don't think, so I didn't know if it was like, it's there, but they just kind of highlighted the ones that they think influence behavior. So I just always wondered like how they connect.
from what I remember, and I can't give you lists, the mental factors are themselves in categories, and all the emotions are in there, yeah. But they're very much like the dictionary definition, they're agitations or disturbances of mind. And therefore, whatever they are, good or bad, the meditations take you to destroying them, yeah. So one starts with developing constructive emotions, but then one gradually works on letting go of those, because ultimately they will be transformed into the wisdom of emptiness and compassion, bodhicitta, which are not emotions. Yeah. So our minds become emotionless as Buddhas, but they are imbued with wisdom and compassion, with the of emptiness and bodhicitta. I have to look it all up because it's not something I delved into, but no, it does make, but does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it's just very like paradoxical
Yeah.
because, when you would say the definition of emotion, but how it's, but then even the positive ones are disturbing.
Yes,
So
exactly.
that was really striking.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if you talk to people who don't really have a handle on the concepts of emptiness and bodhicitta, and please ask me if these are new, because I know this is, Buddhist stuff. They think, well, how horrible to get rid of all your emotions, because we're emotional beings, yeah? Because they don't understand what you're transforming them into. But emotions come and go, and therefore are driven by our ego sensibilities at the time, yeah? Good or bad. Whereas the states of Buddha mind, of the wisdom that realizes emptiness and bodhicitta, are permanent aspects of enlightened mind. They do not come and go, they are not emotions. Yes, so, but here we are, and the more we are self-aware and manage to develop and work with constructive emotions, the more joy, the more natural joy and contentment and fearlessness, all those qualities we will experience, because we're not putting ourselves into positions where our destructive emotion will come against another destructive emotion and a fire will blaze. Yeah, we're water. We're water on all destructive emotions. And that takes us, unless anybody would like to say anything else about this, that takes us into, oh, this is nice too. Yeah, this is, everybody always brings up, well, anger can be very positive. So this is a nice one, because the thing about anger is boom, it comes up, and it's very hard to control. But and so as Aristotle, so we're going back to ancient Greeks here, you know, pre-Buddhism. Anyone can become angry, that's easy. To be angry with the right person at the right time for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not within everyone's power. And that is not easy. So I guess that's the management of emotions for a constructive cause he's talking about, the wise old Aristotle. So yes, so what that brings us to is the constructive antidotes. And here they are. And perhaps we can just have a quick group feedback on what we're saying is that if we feel something like greed or jealousy or anger, these have come up as examples, then, as I said before, you know, loving your neighbor is a very nice idea, but how do you do it? Yeah. So how you do it is you take a constructive antidote that's going to be like the medicine for your destructive emotion. So say we've got greed, which we've had, which of these constructive antidote emotions could you encourage to overcome your greed?
Maybe equanimity.
Lovely, yes, yeah. How would that work? Can we think of an example? Greed for what? Put me on the spot here. So greed, you know.
It's hard for me to think of a greed example because I don't think of myself as greedy.
You have to think of somebody else who's greedy. What are they greedy for? And how would equanimity help them? Seeing everyone as equal.
Well,
No attachment or aversion. So we're on the attachment factor, aren't we? Greed is about attachment, making yourself feel better. Go on, Julia.
it's money, like greed for money, more and more and more money. And equanimity, I don't know if a greedy person can, okay, a person who is experiencing greed, maybe they could notice that the more money they have, they always want more, and that they could consider other people who aren't so privileged to be able to have money, more and more and more money coming in.
Yeah.
And I think sharing could help. Like maybe if they could donate 10% or
Yeah, or you could put another constructive antidote in there, generosity, couldn't you? Yeah, so generosity would, so don't feel limited. These are some examples, yeah, but you could think, okay, you know, well, if I want more and more and more, and maybe if I give, and that's actually, you know, in Buddhism anyway, it's one of the things they say that if you do that, you're likely to get more and more. It's when His Holiness says it's quite a selfish religion, because you know the more you give, the more you get, the more you get. Yeah.
yeah,
But
maybe
obviously not with that motivation. If you have the motivation, sorry, go on.
you teach them about the karma that when they give money, they're planting seeds to get money,
Yes.
and they could water those seeds. And even if their motivation is to want more money, at least they're diluting their greed.
Yes, you have a lovely way of putting things. That's great. Yeah, that's lovely. Okay, so we'll we'll go into more detail of the process of this. We've got time. But for instance, well, let's go down the list and make it easy. Patience. When are you going to practice patience? What difficult emotion requires patience as an antidote?
Anger, maybe, a response to anger.
Yeah, anger. Anger, that's very obvious, isn't it? So, you know, patience is enduring hardship, actually. Enduring hardship is one description. So if you're angry with someone, if somebody is angry with you, yeah, then if we practice patience, we won't retaliate so quickly. And if we're angry with someone and we notice the anger arising, we can then try to water it down with patience, but you might put another emotion in there, another constructive antidote. What would you put in as well? If somebody was being angry, if you were angry with somebody because they were being stupid, you know, then your antidote is patience, but what else might you put in? Forgiveness. Yeah, forgiveness, yeah. Or compassion. So they also go together. You can use more than one antidote. That's the point. How about feeling happy for others? That's a nice obvious one, isn't it?
Jealousy.
Yeah. And honestly, that happens a lot with all of us, that we're constantly comparing, or we're looking at people, oh, look what they've got. Why haven't I got this? And we resent them having it, yeah? So how hard is it to go, I'm really happy for them? That's really tough, yeah? Because you're not getting it yourself. And we might be able to do it with people we're attached to, you know, like if somebody we love, or our children, or they get something good, and we go, really good. But that's attachment. That's also attachment. Because it's one of yours, yeah, they're doing good and you're kind of glad they're doing better than hers down the road, yeah. The way you practice this, the way you practice these emotions is, it's always an act to begin with. You never genuinely feel it, well, unless you're really, you know, karmically wonderful. But so if we go back to jealousy, you're jealous, okay, you're on your own, and your friend who always used to go everywhere with you, suddenly she's got a lover, yeah, and you're jealous, basically, and you're like, it's really going to affect me, and you even say to her, I don't like him, he's a funny guy, or something like this, so you start pushing him down, making her feel uncomfortable, you know? So it grows into isolation and loss, and them feeling uncomfortable and guilty and blah, 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 blah. So very unpleasant. And then you might also talk about them to other people. So you create divisiveness and slander. So it goes all over the place. Now then, if you see that and you're practicing emotional intelligence, then the way to do it is, I'm really happy for that. But it might be more like, oh, I'm really happy for him. With your teeth, and it's not real. But you know, you kind of, that is a better way to feel, yeah? So then you have to kind of work on it. You certainly won't talk about it to anybody because you are practicing. And you start to, every time you think about them, go, oh, it's really nice of her, she deserves it. So it gradually, because jealousy is just a habit, just a habitual emotion, it gradually becomes genuine. And whew, that feels great. And then in other situations, you'll soon start, it really, you know, is something that doesn't take years and years, but you still go, oh, actually, oh, that's really nice for them. And you go, ooh, no jealousy. Yeah. Definitely.
Another aspect of, I think, feeling happy for others is being happy for yourself. And that then is tied to having gratitude and being able to see what you have in your life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're so intertwined that way, all of these, in
They
terms
are.
of,
they are, yeah. And then also, you know, if you're feeling happy for them, then there's also an element of compassion or even empathy that you've both been on your own and, you know, and that hasn't been great, or compassion because you're thinking, yes, she hasn't a partner since so-and-so died those years ago. All kinds of positives bounce off the positives, you know, to support one another. Okay. Anybody want to give an example or pursue constructive antidotes a little bit more, or have we all got an understanding of how they work? Brilliant. Okay. So now we're going to a little bit of self-reflection. Now, in the corner there is just it's an illustration from the book actually, which you're going to hold up to the people in here. Yeah. So because I haven't got a whiteboard, I'm not that kind of teacher at the moment. Can you see that? You can see that on here. What you do, this is for your self-reflection. What you do is you draw your own wheel. Right? Around the outside, you put 7 or 8, or however many you've got there. Actually, there's 8, isn't there? You write all the obvious ones and possibly ones that you identify with, you know, like jealousy, low self-esteem, anger, greed, whatever. They're outside. And then it's nice to do this with a coloured pen because emotions we often relate to colours as well. You just randomly fill it in. How much on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being right in the middle. Very few, like if you see there's, with this one, pride, there's not much pride in there, yeah? And there's not much fear or anxiety, but goodness me, loads of jealousy and quite a lot of a judgmental view. So you just don't think too much about it. You just go round, and then at the end, what you do is you pick out your biggest one. Because if we're going to try and spend all our time watching every emotion, we're going to be knackered. Yeah, it's hard work. So you work on your biggest one first. That's what this is for. And of course, it changes at different times in your life. So you can have a look and go, oh, actually, I don't have quite so much jealousy anymore, but hey, my pride. Which is a result of realizing that you're not jealous anymore. If it sort of feeds one another. So there's some descriptions of the destructive emotions, and you may well come up with others, and this wheel is just for you. So grab a piece of paper and draw your wheel. It's not an art contest, and just fill it in a bit. All you're doing is getting your strongest destructive emotion, and by that it's the one that visits you most. Yeah, just one that visits you most. I'm sorry? Oh, yes, I beg your pardon. Yes, yes. So I'll just go back on myself there and just say what you'll come out of this with, whether you finish it now or you finish it on your own, you know, at home where some of you already are, is a most dominant destructive emotion. So it's not that it's always going to be that, it's what you're experiencing now for whatever reason, or maybe you've always experienced it. what will happen is when you practice on that one emotion, then you will have the space rather than feeling that you've got to watch everything, which will give you no self-esteem, which we don't want. It will make you feel that you can't cope or it's too much, yeah? So make it easy and focus on one. And then when you do within a week or a year, you know, feel that, wow, I really am managing that much more now, then do the wheel again, yeah? And see what comes up, or maybe you'll know. This is just a tool. You know, you don't have to do it, but it's a tool. It's quite useful because if you do it in an intuitive way, you just fill it in. You don't think about, when was I angry? You just fill it in. It will come up. So trust your intuition. Start to trust that, and don't make it a hard job. Julia.
What is the antidote for fearful and anxious?
Mindfulness. Fearful and anxiousness, yeah. It's taking those deep breaths, yeah. You're coming into the present, recognizing where you are now. Because anxiety and worry and fear, they're connected with future and past. What will happen if? Look what happened to me, yeah? So we use mindfulness with a huge dollop of compassion and understanding how you might be feeling it, yeah? Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you for that. Okay, so let's clarify. We're working on developing our emotional intelligence. So the first one is knowing one's emotions, self-awareness, where you're there with that, you're getting a grip on that already. Managing emotions, so when those feelings come up of anger, you're going, oh, that's anger. I'll start to put the antidote into place. I'll take some deep breaths. I'll always practice mindfulness. Step back, take a breath, yeah, take a beat, as they say, before reacting. So you want to respond, not react, yeah? Okay, so then motivating oneself, that's like we talked about, marshalling emotions in the service of a goal. Motivating oneself is, okay, I'm angry, something awful's happened, but there's no point doing this, and this is the way to do it. That will achieve the results. And recognizing emotions in others without judging them is empathy, yeah? So we're not using that because you can do. You know, emotional intelligence is also used in things like the army to identify the emotions of others and then use that, but you know them. But this is an empathic, because we are developing compassion and love and openness for others. We are feeling with them. Right? And then handling relationships is social competence. So recognizing emotions in others and managing our own helps us handle relationships much better. So we don't get into an accusation or routine with partners, with children, with parents, with friends, whatever. We are intelligent about them. Okay? Are we okay with that? Because this is what we're going on to. So this is what I suggest. It says 7 steps to emotional stability. It should be emotional heaven. Anyway, I don't know where that comes from. So the first one is we're able to identify the destructive thought and emotions through mindfulness. We're aware. Okay? We know, oh, there it is. And look how immediately easier that is, because we're not going, I'm angry. We're going, oh, there's anger. Look at that difference. Just that. Helps so much, that objectivity. Step 2, we're convinced it's going to be destructive one way or another. So we've got to manage it. We want to make changes to ourselves. You will meet many people who go, so what if I'm angry? I should be. And I'm that kind of a person, you know. They're kind of very stubborn about themselves and see these faults, if you like, non-virtues, whatever you want to call them, as aspects of themselves that they're quite proud about. Okay? So really noticing, definitely want to work on this one, because I know it's going nowhere. We know the antidote emotion, or the technique, always bringing mindfulness in, recognizing that there might be more than one emotion. You won't have to think too much about it, it'll come up naturally. You know, your compassion, your empathy, if it's jealousy, you know, feeling happy for others is an obvious one. That's such a common one. If we can manage that, that's huge. Feeling happy for others. Yeah. And then you put it into action to change your mind. So again, you're faking it. You're not going to really feel it to begin with. Yeah. I'm trying to be patient. I'm trying to be patient. You know that one. Yeah. It's going to be an act. But the more we do it, we're literally changing the paths in our brain, or the neurons, yeah? We're literally changing that. And instead of going down that route, we're going down another route. So it takes practice to know the right route. We generate the feeling of the positive emotion. We want to finish by doing this as a meditation, so that it feels more natural to you. So you feel happy, you generate them. That's so much better. And then there is the second. We acknowledge our improved state of mind. If we're able to go to that process, and it sounds complicated, but it's not when you do it, it will take seconds. Yeah? It just takes seconds, this whole process. Then we're more likely to do it again and again and again. Okay? And we might find that we are working on other destructive emotions, but just let it come easy. Just let it be easy for you. One at a time, and be content. Because that's a huge job, actually. Okay. We're coming to the end. This is the last slide now. I'm bringing them up there. So there you go, little spiritual warrior. Okay. If we can think about the weekend, the nature of the mind, stabilizing it, developing objectivity, understanding the self, what we understand to be the self. Familiarity with the way my mind works in an objective way, with compassion. Then you practice it. You notice the thoughts, and at the end of each day, you think, did that? Okay, that's fine. Not too big a job, just gentle. Yeah. Slowly. And you increase your self-awareness. And then you've got mindfulness with attitude. So any questions before we do the final meditation? This one. I just want to take you through that with your eyes lowered and identifying. Okay, let's do this then, just to finish off. Just relax and generate a feeling of great happiness that you've completed a course. And it feels good. A great way to spend your time. Let those breaths come naturally as you lower your shoulders, let go of any tensions. Now we're already in a state of generating a very positive state of mind for completion of some quite deep self-analysis. And so let's see if we can make these 7 steps to emotional heaven, emotional stability. So just remind yourself of the destructive emotion that you were looking at. And maybe remind yourself of when it's caused you a bit of bother recently or in the past. So really ask yourself, was it clever? Was it painful? Are you convinced of its destructive nature? You can remind yourself of some of the causes, what it caused. And then, I really don't want that in my life so much. I want to really be able to manage that. So you want to make changes. You want to make changes to yourself. And you know the antidote or other techniques. Standing back, leaving the room, taking deep breaths, all those practical things, while you consider replacing the destructive emotion with the constructive one. And put it into action. Even though you know that other person perhaps has been awful, you've really got to think, I can't change them. I can only change how I handle it. And then feel the relief that is as it starts to affect the destructive emotion. And to begin with, it might take a long time, it might only chip away at it, but just notice the improvement, because that will encourage you to do it again. And then just acknowledge how much better you feel. And we call it divine pride. You know, it's not like, how great am I? It's more like, how to manage that. I do feel better. And I have all those other things as well: understanding, tolerance, patience, compassion, whatever it is you put in place. And meditation. As we end our meditation, you can think, well, I can do that at the end of the day. You can just look back, glance over the day, and see how I've handled myself. And if it hasn't been so great, then never mind. I'm aware. Next time. And if we're doing that in this crazy world, with everything that's going on around us that we find so challenging, you are a spiritual level. Okay. Mhm. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to work with you so constructively. You guys have worked really well together. Well, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
For the center.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For the classes.
Oh, I'm getting a little gift here. Don't go away. Thank you so much. Thank you. Well, this is what I do. Thank you. Thank you for helping in the centre and being able to offer all these variety of courses. I'm sure you all benefit. I don't know what you attend here, but I'm sure you're on the list and get to know of all the wonderful things. And I believe Rabina's teaching here tomorrow night. So that's another way of looking at things.
And I didn't say it, but please come back. We'd love to
Oh.
have you come back, either
That
on
would be-
Zoom or
yeah.
through the flesh.
Yeah, who knows? That would be lovely. That would be lovely. Thank you.
so much, Ondy.
Oh, thank you. Good, I'm glad it's been useful. Will do, I will do. We'll try and make that work, yeah? And hopefully,
Wait, I want to get in my book.
oh, the
Yeah,
books are around, yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna get-
Yeah, well, that's great, yes.
Oh,
The more you buy, the less I have to carry to Indiana.
Yes,
you do want, she wants.
yes, I would like to.
And you guys, I don't know if you can get to the centre and if you're interested, maybe tell them.
We can hold them.
Yes,
yeah,
you can hold,
now.
you can hold the books and I can sign it for you now, if you know that. If not, as I said, and you want one, they're on Amazon as well. Yeah, but there's some here. Yeah, thank you so much, all of you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was really wonderful.
Thank you, Julia. I love your contributions, all of you.